Today, we're talking about one of the most powerful tools in emotional resilience, healthy communication. It's not just about what you say, but how you say it, how the message is delivered. And that can be the difference in whether it builds connection, resolves things, or just puts up bigger walls. Stay tuned as we go through various tips and tricks and things for you to take note of on the next time you have a conversation. Hi there, and welcome back to Hope Regained. My name's Christiane Boudreau, and I'm your host. And we're going to start talking about something we haven't discussed yet, which is healthy communication. This is something that doesn't necessarily come instantly for everybody or easily. It's something that takes practice. And if you pay attention or you reflect now and then, you will start to notice how it comes across. And sometimes it's also a matter of recording yourself in a communication or any of those tools. But before you start all of that and investigating as to how you sound in a conversation, we're going to talk through steps. The first thing a lot of people don't even recognize is, what does healthy communication look like? Well, communication is key for most of us. And for it to be healthy, it needs to be honest, respectful. You need to communicate your ideas clearly or your thoughts, and be very emotionally aware. We have talked about self-awareness and emotional intelligence in the past, and this is an area where you can use those tools. It is a balance of expression and listening. So not only are you expressing how you feel, but you're also listening. You have to be an effective listener to be an effective communicator. It's definitely a two-way street. So let's remember that. And there are 4 pillars we need to pay attention to in that healthy communication. Clarity. So saying what you mean, not letting the other person read between the lines, being clear. Now, there's a way in delivering that about that we will cover in the next section. But being clear is very, very important so that somebody doesn't misunderstand what you're saying and they walk away with a misunderstanding. Compassion. When we're having a difficult conversation, especially, we always have to have compassion for the other person, just as you would expect them to have compassion with you. It helps open the door to that clear communication and helps open our ears and hearts for effective listening and delivery. Curiosity. You need to stay open to the other person's experience or ideas or their particular feelings. Remember, they're not you and you're not them. You're both unique. So the way something comes across could be completely different for each person. And last but not least, remember the boundaries in this conversation. And they're both going to be different as well. But as long as you maintain a level of respect without blame and leave that door open, that's key. That's the beginnings right there. So some communication patterns you should avoid is passive communication. In other words, avoiding certain things to avoid conflict. Avoiding it doesn't solve it. It's just about the way you deliver. So if it feels uncomfortable and you're afraid of something erupting, sometimes it's the way you deliver the message. And then if the conflict happens, then there can always be how the other person's receiving it. There's also aggressive communication. Nobody likes to be yelled at. Let's face it. That usually creates the other person either to shut down or to yell in return. In fact, I remember somebody telling me that if somebody is yelling at you, when you respond to them, you can whisper. And because they have to listen to you, it creates a reaction where it brings their tone down. Well, again, aggressiveness can easily shut down a conversation. So be aware of how you're coming across. Passive aggressiveness is another one that nobody is comfortable with. Passive aggression is when you are trying to make the other person feel guilty instead of delivering the message. Or I try to think of some good examples on this one, but if you are underhanded with some of your remarks in a way that you're trying to cover it up, that could be construed as passive aggressive as well. We can get more into detail on that in another episode with regards to how to cope with passive aggression. And most of all is avoidant. Silence and shut down. If you get to a point where you just shut down, you don't want to have the conversation at all, then it's going to block. And some of us have patterns in our life that's what we've done. We just shut down and don't communicate at all. Unfortunately, with that, we don't get too far, we don't get resolution, and we don't get to build opportunities for happiness. So with all of these conversations, I think for me, where I feel the most uncomfortable is with the aggressive one. And that is due to past experiences in my life that has caused me to shut down. So if you can recognize where your blocks are, then it helps you to work on those. So moving forward, it gets better for you, easier. And hey, maybe the other person can learn some tips from you as well. So here are some tools for a healthier way to communicate to start off with. When you're having a conversation with somebody, and it can be a bit difficult, use an I statement. Quite often, we tend to recoil and feel like we're being blamed for something, and that will cause us to shut down. But if you express to somebody how you are feeling and say, I feel, then you're not presenting in a you format where it could be misconstrued as an attack or blame. It softens the blow. It's a way to deliver a message with less aggression. Name your emotions clearly. If you are talking to somebody, let them know how you feel. You don't have to express them loudly, but just maybe say, I'm feeling hurt, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I'm feeling sad. Any of those things can be easier to take in as a person receiving the message rather than them misunderstanding perhaps that you're angry at them. So stating your feelings, your emotions in a softer delivery in the beginning helps open that communication and stops it from shutting down. Remember, your conversation is a two-way street. That means you also have to participate in listening. So, just as you want someone to hear you, they want to be heard as well. That's half the battle for all of us. We all want to be heard. So, if you let them be heard, that can open a door for a few things. Number one, it could give you a clear understanding of what direction this conversation is going to go. It gives you benefit as well. And number two, that person feeling heard, they could start to relax in that discussion. So that is a tool. And another thing would be validating their feelings, even if you don't agree. So that allows them to be heard and feel like you're connecting. Look, the way I feel about certain things can be completely different than the way somebody else feels about those same things. It's not wrong. Our feelings are our own, and we deserve to have them validated. So if somebody says it made them feel hurt and you think, it's nothing, get over it, that's not validating or respecting that person's feelings. And that can shut down that conversation right away. So if you validate how they're being heard and that their feelings do count and matter, even though you don't agree with them, that can open the door and make any conversation much easier. Breathe before you speak. Pause. I remember somebody telling me once that that pregnant pause meant that that person was about to tell you a lie. Wrong. Misconception. A lot of times, if we're getting in an emotional conversation, we're both struggling with the emotion, it can quickly get heated, escalate. So at that moment, I think it's important that we just breathe. It's like in any email or letter that you're writing or sending to somebody, we always should go back and read it again to take the emotion out of it. And in a conversation, you can't really stop and go back and take the emotion out of sentences you just said. But what you can do is breathe, take a moment, and remind yourself, let's not escalate, let's not go there. It helps digest and process what that person's just said, and it helps stay calm and focused on coming to a resolution rather than getting caught up in the emotion in the conversation. So what I would say is the best way to start practicing some of this is role play. And some people don't feel comfortable about that. Or in your next conversation that you have with somebody, try a few of these tips. Try one at a time just to see how it changes the dynamics. Then journal about it, write it down so you don't forget, and practice again. Like I said, it's not perfect right away, but these are tools that you can use to help those conversations go smoother and get the point across or get resolved quicker. Now, that's not to say that sometimes these conversations are tough. They're hard. And being able to communicate effectively is a two-way street. And sometimes you'll come up against a block. That's the other person that makes it difficult. So you have to realize right off the top, effective communication is not perfection. There are two people minimum involved in this communication or this conversation. And it's not always going to be easy or perfect. It's about practice. And at times, you also have to realize when a conversation can go off track. Like I said, if emotions start to run high, then it can get very difficult to progress effectively in that conversation. So, as a stopgap, sometimes in the beginning or during the conversation, you can stop, step back, and say, let's take a time out and breathe. You're not going to solve anything if those emotions get heated, and sometimes it can cause more harm than good. It's okay to step away and take a few minutes pause. Just because you practice effective communication and have the skills and tool sets doesn't mean the other person has ever had the opportunity to learn yet. So when needed, take that step back. And if you know it's going to be a difficult conversation in the beginning, it doesn't hurt to start by saying, if you're feeling emotionally overwhelmed or charged, stop, take a breath, and I'm going to do the same. So allowing that introduction before you even go there to open that door for an opportunity to take that breath and that pause is always a good idea, especially if it's an emotional conversation, a difficult one. It's good to know that you both have an opportunity to take a step back without reflecting on the other person of how everything is going or what they're saying. It's about just taking a moment for thought and pause and breath. This is the best way to build resilient relationships. Effective communication is key in any relationship we have, whether that be work, family, friends, or sometimes if you're just going out to a mechanic to have your vehicle fixed and it becomes difficult, or any other customer service situation. Let me tell you, I know for a fact I can get very, very heated quickly and emotional when it comes to the customer service. I'm aware of my problems. I'm aware where I need to do more work. But we're often faced with a lot more bots that speak back to us. So in everyday life, effective communicating will get us much further, except for when it's with a bot. Effective communication can repair trust in a relationship. It can build empathy, and empathy is key. You want that person that you're connecting with or have that relationship with to have empathy for you just as much as they need it from you back. And it can reduce defensiveness. It can bring those walls down. Let's face it, we all feel much better when we feel heard and understood. It doesn't necessarily mean that we need everybody to agree with us, just heard and understood. And from that, we can listen much better. We can learn to hear others. It goes both ways. So let's say we sit back and look and say, when was the last time you truly felt heard in any conversation? And what made that moment powerful? What did you feel at that moment? If you could imagine that, then that's what that other person is likely experiencing too. Very, very powerful. So let's have a look, a brief review at all the points that are important. First off, speak clearly. Definitely don't mumble. Things could get misconstrued that way. Listen openly. Hear what that other person has to say. Be prepared to do the listening as well. Express your needs. So with your needs, you'd be saying I statements rather than you need to. No, express it as I. Remember the I statement. Step away from the you and the blame. And last but not least, try to stay grounded. Grounded all times. In other words, without the emotional heat up. And when that starts to happen, be self-aware enough to step back, take a pause, breathe. This is just the beginning of learning to effectively communicate. It's all about practice, practice, practice. And I'm trying my best to learn this one as well. There are so many people out there with some great advice. I've watched some super, super, super videos that we'll be linking in our resource page on www.hoperegain.com under this episode, as well as some great books that I managed to pick up. And I'd recommend that these can also help get you thinking or get the creative juices going before you enter your next conversation. In the meantime, I challenge you to pick one conversation per week minimum where you make the conscious effort in advance that you're going to practice healthy communication, even if it feels uncomfortable. Practice makes it easier. It becomes a habit. It becomes your style, your way of doing things. And each time that you make that self-commitment to practice healthy communicating, you're focused on it, take notes of how it changed the dynamics of that particular conversation or with that particular person. See how it changed things. See where you could have done things differently or better. We'll create a reflection page on our resources as well to help you take steps of that direction. You can find all of this again on our website or contact us through website. We love hearing from you. We love hearing your different ideas and areas where you really want to make that difference. Conversations being easier and happier, it helps us rediscover our love for life. It really makes a difference. And if you think this video could help somebody you know, please share it with them. We want to reach as many people as we can to start making some things easier when we have so many other things that we don't have control over. You could follow us on all our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and you can directly message us on those as well. We answer everybody, and we want to be able to be here for you, or I care. And I want to be able to connect with you so that I can be on the journey with you. In the meantime, please hit subscribe or send us a comment, and we'll see you next week.